Oh, hello there. Jim Harrison here, ready to do one of my many live stream. Yeah, that's what I'm doing, my live stream. Anyway, I was starting to say many, wasn't I? I haven't done that many yet. So we're going to get started now. I'm going to be talking about quantum perspective on essential oils. What do I possibly mean by this? I started studying, I shouldn't say study, I started reading about quantum physics, quantum theory, quantum mechanics years ago. And it coincided with when I started learning about essential oils and started working with essential oils. And they seem to go together so well. I was also reading a lot about and doing a little bit of practice in Eastern philosophy of Buddhism and Taoism. I really like Taoism. And Taoism connected me to or got me reading this book called The Tao of Physics. Tao of Physics was by Fritjof Capra, written, I don't know, late 70s or something like that. And it was about quantum mechanics, but tying it in with Eastern philosophies, Taoism, Buddhism. A lot of the Eastern philosophies were mentioned in there, but those are the two main ones. And what was happening well, what the book was saying, I should put it that way, is that the quantum understanding, and I'll explain that in a minute, what the whole quantum physics thing is, but looking at quantum physics and looking at what we know about quantum physics, or what the quantum physicists know about quantum physics, tied in a lot with what the Eastern mystics were saying. And one of the things that I found really interesting, because I was reading the Tao Te Ching, and in the Tao Te Ching, it begins with, the name that can be named is not the eternal name. Or, if you're calling it Taoism, you're not a Taoist. It's very strange concepts. And then when I was reading, Fritjof Capra, I think, is the one that brought this up, not so much directly, but this is how I understood it, is that quantum physics, there's no language for it. We can talk about it and it can be explained, but the only accurate language is mathematics. So basically is that, if you're talking about quantum physics, you're not really talking about quantum physics, very much like what the Taoism philosophy was. I thought that was cool. And I say this a lot because it ties in with how I work with essential oils. I really like weird. And quantum physics is definitely weird. Richard Feynman, famous quantum physicist, mostly from the mid 20th century, which quantum physics, by the way, started toward the end of the 19th century, and then during the early 1900s into the 1940s, mainly the 1920s and 30s. Quantum mechanics was being highly developed, and a lot of the theories we still work with were developed early 1900s. And so Richard Feynman, being a more, I guess, modern physicist, he had a quote that I've always loved this quote. And what it is I'm going to read this so I do it right. If you think you understand quantum physics, nope, I did that wrong. If you think you understand quantum mechanics, you don't understand quantum mechanics. I just love weird. These are the things that the Eastern philosophy and quantum physics and essential oils, they work together for me because essential oils are also hard to define. We can do it, we do it all the time, but it doesn't accurately define how essential oils work. It doesn't accurately define our understanding, or what an accurate understanding of essential oils would be. We have the chemistry, and we rely a lot on the chemistry. We go to the GCMS and look at what the chemistry of the oils would be. And then we look at what those molecules will do when you look at the research that's available. And it will specifically tell you what the oils do, and then they break it down to what the compounds do. And this is primarily how we're understanding aromatherapy and essential oils these days. except for me. I don't find it accurate enough. I studied French aroma medicine, which was basically the beginning chapters of aromatherapy. This started in 1920s, late 1920s, 1930s with Gattefossé. And it became a medical practice in France, Switzerland, and Germany. And so French aroma medicine, which is what I studied, was all about the medical use of essential oils. We look at the chemistry, we look at the properties, we look at the results that we get, which are very real and very accurate. There's good research on this. But as I developed my own practice of essential oils, I was finding that the oils didn't work that way. They don't. I have books on French aroma medicine. I've tried a lot of these recipes. I even worked with doctors who were using essential oils in an IV internally. And I found that the things that worked in research didn't necessarily always work in practice. So my development of aromatherapy, along with my knowledge and learning about quantum mechanics, kind of came together in a really nice way. It helped me to understand essential oils much more. And not only essential oils, but people in general. So when I talk about holistic, there's a connection there. And what I say in holism, an article I wrote was called How Whole is Holistic, and it's infinite. Now, why would I say that? When we think about what causes symptoms, what causes illness, we can look at emotional issues, and we can look around the body, and there's environment and things that are very present, and we can isolate them in a way to determine whether they are factors of illness. But the quantum aspect of it goes a lot deeper. There's an interconnected universe that we live in. And the ways this is explained is quantum mechanics, first of all, I haven't really explained this yet, is the study of the subatomic world. And what we mean by that is we have an atom, and it has protons, neutrons, electrons. It's the electrons that are mainly looked at to study quantum mechanics, and also particles of light, which are photons. Now, in this diagram that you see when or what do they call them? Orbiting. I know this stuff. Orbiting electrons around a nucleus. They orbit in pairs. And what is explained in quantum physics is the electron pairs, and I'm still kind of talking in particle terms here. And those two electrons have paired up, and they have a spin, which is also weird. A spin, if you think of the face, and if I go around one time, that would be one turn. One spin in electrons is 1.5 times. I don't get it. I don't understand it. But like Feynman said, if I don't understand it, I must understand it. That's good philosophy. So the electron pairing and the spin, and their sister electrons. So they have alternates, or not alternate, but opposite spinning. One's going clockwise, the other one's going counterclockwise. When those electrons are separated light years away, and we have the one down here on Earth, and we change that spin, it will simultaneously change the spin of the one light years away. Now, in physics, which we call Newtonian physics, and how we deal with the world, that's impossible, because space and time exist in that reality. And so if I change the spin here, it would take space and time for that reaction to reach the electron that is light years away. But it happens simultaneously. This is how we're viewing the interconnected universe. This has come up in all the New Age and New Speak kind of philosophies, that everything is interconnected, no matter how close, how far. Everything is interconnected. We're in a weave, and just all woven together. Einstein actually called that spooky action at a distance, because he did not like what was being discovered in quantum physics. He did not trust that knowledge was accurate. And all of the experiments that Einstein did to try and disprove what was being discovered in quantum mechanics actually proved it even more so. So this spooky action at a distance tells us that we live in an interconnected universe. So even our holistic way of working ties into quantum physics. So looking at these electrons and even the photons at a subatomic level, what was also discovered is that the behavior, or actually not so much the behavior, but what are these subatomic particles? We think of them as little balls, little solid particles. When they were observed, they're actually a wave. Now, a wave doesn't accurately explain it. Like I said, mathematics is the only language. I'm describing it outside of what it really is because our senses don't allow for a language that describes quantum mechanics. I think it's so cool, all this stuff. So wave, and it's a wave or it's a particle. And that's our Newtonian reality, right? It's big or small, it's black or white. But in quantum mechanics, it's in both and reality. So the particle is also a wave. But is it a wave and a particle at the same time? This is where what's called the collapsing of the wave comes in. And there's an observer effect that also ties into all of this. So what that means is that the probability is how they phrase it. If you are looking at an electron, there's a probability that once you observe it, it will be either a wave or a particle. It becomes classic physics. It's Newtonian physics. It becomes what we observe in reality. It's an either or. It's a wave or a particle. Before it is observed, it's both and. It's a wave and a particle, all at the same time. How cool is this stuff, right? One of the thought experiments that came into play was Schrodinger's cat. So Erwin Schrödinger is one of the physicists who actually helped develop what we are working with now in quantum mechanics, quantum physics. So Schrodinger's cat, I'm going to simplify it. It's a cat in a box, and no cats were harmed in this experiment because you can't really do it. It's a thought experiment, meaning you can't really do it. Cat in the box, you press a button. I mean, there's a whole deal that goes along with that. You press a button, and that button is either going to release a poison or not. So the result is, if the poison is released, the cat will die. So we have the box. You can't hear it. You can't smell it. You can't feel it, see it, nothing. You cannot sense the cat at all inside the box. So we press the button, boom. Now the question is, we don't open the box yet. We can't observe it in any way. You press the button, is the cat dead or alive? And the answer to that question is the cat is dead and alive. Another cool thing, right? So this is the both and reality. Now, why am I talking about quantum physics? I started talking quantum physics in my essential oil classes pretty much when I started teaching, because like I said, it was coinciding with the learning that I was doing on both sides, essential oils and quantum mechanics. What does this have to do, the both and reality? I was teaching a class in China, and I have in one of my olfactory classes, I do storytelling with essential oils. And so we took a story and we turned this into a formula, which is a lot of fun. You're going to have to take one of those courses with me, storytelling with essential oils. And in that story, well, it's not so much what was in the story, but as I was writing the recipe, so we go through a lot of steps, which I'm not going to describe now. I'm going through those steps. I had some oils like lavender, peppermint, rosemary, chamomile on this list. And I ended up putting, I can't remember which ones, maybe it was chamomile and peppermint that ended up in the final formula. And one of my students said, won't they cancel each other out? You're putting a calming oil and an energizing oil together. And saying no, because essential oils are not calming or energizing. They also have this both and ability. And the way I explain that, because it was in the story, I said it's nature. Essential oils are nature. And in that story, there was a description of a spring day with the warm sun and the cool breeze. And I explained it as nature. And in nature, you have opposites like warmth and cool happening at the same time. They don't cancel each other out. They synergize. They create whatever it is it creates. What does it feel like? Warm sun, cool breeze. What is the feeling of putting two essential oils that seem to be opposites but are not? Calming and energizing. It's nature. You're creating a feel. You are the creator. And this is why I like quantum physics. It helps us to understand that we are the creators when we're using essential oils. And if we break away from this either or philosophy that's been indoctrinated into us with essential oils, we can be much more effective. We can be much more creative, and our therapeutic potential becomes much greater. This is what I like about understanding quantum physics and relating it to what essential oils are. So in the Cat in the Box, we have a both and, live and dead. Before you use your oils, you also have this potential. Now, yes, we do have research and all these other things, but I have doubts about some of the research that tells us that it's calming or telling us that it's energizing. I know it worked in the research, but what was the intention? What was the drive? And this gets to the two-slit experiment in quantum physics. So you have two holes, and you have a gun shooting electrons. Now, if the electrons are particles, they go through one hole or the other, right? One particle cannot go through both holes at the same time. So there's a chart behind the two slits, and you shoot those electrons. And when you're asking a particle question, what you find on the other side is it appears in what the results are that shows where those particles hit is that they're particles because they didn't go on this side. All the electrons showed up on this side. Now we change the chart, which is changing the question. And the question is, are electrons waves? And what they found when they did this electron shooting out of whatever they were using, on the other side, it appeared as if the electrons were a wave. They created a pattern that would be like if water was shot at these holes, the water would go in and disperse on the other side, just like a wave. So the two-slit experiment shows that the question, also considered the observer, is part of this, but a lot of physicists say, no. There is no observer effect. You know, it's reality is absolute. The mechanics don't necessarily agree with that, but the physicists have been going back for over 100 years now, trying to resolve this issue. With essential oils, we don't need to resolve anything. We can create our own both-and reality and use the oils with the intention, with the question, what is it? That's our question. What is our oil going to do? Or better, for when we're doing a therapeutic formulation, what do we want that formula to do? What do we want the results to be? In a way, we're asking the same question as looking at the two-slit experiment. How cool is all this stuff, right? I want to follow notes here because I want to make sure I get everything in. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is a lot of fun too. Now, what is Heisenberg's uncertainty principle? It's in classical physics, Newtonian physics. If I have a ball and I throw it through mathematics, through the physics of understanding weight, velocity, force, I can tell you where that ball is going to end up. All right. So force and weight can tell you what the speed and where that ball is going to end up, or location. Now, in Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, with electrons at subatomic level, you cannot determine both the position or the speed of the subatomic particle. It's just so weird. At that subatomic level, we cannot determine things that in our physical world we can determine. And again, this gets me into intention. It's a different perspective on what our oils are. So when we read books and we follow recipes, yes, we want to do that, especially if you're a newbie, right? You need to follow somebody's instructions. Follow those instructions. But as you develop your aromatherapy training and as you develop your skills, I like to tell people, because I taught at a university, I taught at a medical university, and there's no way, people are going to spend all that money for me to say, hey, do what you want to do. It doesn't matter. Hey, it's all good, right? I don't think my classes would have lasted. So what I did is I'm teaching intense chemistry. I'm teaching all these therapeutic properties known from research. But as I get toward the end, especially when I get to the olfactory system, which is toward the end of the lessons, because the olfactory system definitely behaves in a very quantum way. If I have lavender, this was an experiment. Is lavender calming? So the experiment goes, and this goes along with the two slit experiment and the cat in the box, right? Both in reality. So lavender is calming, right? We know that. They took some test participants, and they gave them some lavender, and they said, here's a calming oil. They didn't really tell them what the oil was. Here's a calming oil. And 100% these people were calmed. Skin readings and brainwave readings, all those things. Said, yeah, it's calming. So they wanted to try an energizing oil. So they took a group of people, and they said, here's your energizing oil. You're going to be stimulated 100%. These participants were stimulated through the skin readings and through the brain readings. 100% showed this oil to be a stimulant. Both oils were lavender. So is lavender stimulating or calming? It depends on the intention. It depends on the question. Now, I started talking the olfactory system when I said that, because when you deal with the olfactory system, olfactory verbal cues can determine the outcome of your essential oil. That is something I talk about a lot, the olfactory system. In Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, all of these things fall into place in the same way. We can understand the oils one way, but not in another fashion. If we look at it in this other way, we lose this aspect to it. Now, is that always true? No, of course not. We live in a very physical reality. We don't live in relationship with quantum mechanics, but quantum mechanics is the foundation of that physical reality. So now, let's look at intention and probability when it comes to essential oils as a quantum practice. I didn't finish telling you what I was saying to my students in the olfactory system and all the science and everything that I teach them. And as I get to the end of that class with the olfactory system, I tell them, learn, get so deep into this information that you just know it. Once you know it and it's part of you, forget about it. When you forget about it, you're able to reach beyond what somebody tells you. And this is one of the issues I've always had with the educational system in general. I was going to say in the US, but in general, we're told and 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 we're told until our reality is so narrow that this is all we know. Now, here's our essential oil world. It's narrow. It's this. Learn about the olfactory system. Learn about quantum physics. Then just forget everything and do whatever you want. And it becomes more expansive. It becomes more infinite. The things that you will learn, the things that you will do are going to be so much more expansive, and you have so much diversity and so much versatility and so much potential in your healing work with essential oils. It's really fun. It really is to be creative. That's why I have storytelling with essential oils. And I do these, just really off the wall stories. One person in my class wanted to create a blend based on, it's not really a story, but she wanted to base it on her walking into the fields, going to her beehives to harvest honey. How do you do that? We did. We created the idea. And from that idea, we created therapeutic properties. And from those therapeutic properties, we chose oils. And then we put a blend together that represented that feeling, that idea, that potential, that intention. So intentions can be very specific. You have a headache. Let's go into the interconnected universe. You have a headache. Why do you have a headache? Stress, relationships, diet, environment. Listening to me talk about quantum physics and your head's going, I have a headache now. Why do you have a headache? This is really opens up a different avenue to understand why. And then once you understand why, you can go into that same space and find all of these different remedies for that person. You're not selecting oils for the symptom, you're selecting oils for the person. That will be something you hear me repeat in almost every class. And so, what we have is potential. We have intention. We have the idea that these very, very small molecules in a very complex system, which is what the essential oil is. They are a complex mixture of multi-target compounds. So many molecules that are able to bind with several cell receptors as well as other activity that's multi-target. It means it's doing many things. One oil does many things, especially the more complex oils like Melissa and Rose, Neroli. Unbelievable the potential they have. You cannot box them into anything. They can be whatever you want because they are complex. They are wonderful. They're beautiful. They're amazing. I could go on and on and on and on about this, and I will another time. But just understand that what I'm trying to say is that when we have a more open and really the acknowledgement of what the quantum world is all about, it helps us to move forward with some of those inconsistent things that happen in aromatherapy. There's a lot of activity with essential oils when we predict it's going to do this, but then it doesn't. Why didn't it work? Well, the oils are no good, right? Essential oils, yeah, it's just, a lot of marketing nonsense. So people can sell a lot of oils that do nothing, right? It's that whole, it's a con, it's a scam. Or you didn't use the right oil. Because when we think of it as drugs, this oil should do this thing. It's not going to do that thing all the time. When you think of the oil as having the potential, like in quantum probability, it has the potential. It has all of this waiting to happen. Let's see if it fits over here. If it doesn't fit over here, then we need to adjust what we're doing. It's not that the oils don't work. It's not that essential oil is not a very valid scientific medical practice. And I'm not supposed to make medical claims. I didn't, right? I just said medical practice. Anyway, the potential is all there. It's incredible. It's amazing what you can do with these essential oils. I have so much more information to share about probability, about intention, and I like to throw in intuition as well. The more you learn and the more you study about essential oils, and the more you can learn and read about quantum physics, quantum mechanics, this shows up in the law of attraction stuff, right? They do that. The quantum world is you're using your mind to create a reality. That's all based on quantum physics as well. Quantum philosophy is what I like to call it when, I'm not a scientist and I'm not a quantum physicist. And so I use this as philosophy. I use it to understand my life, the life of my clients, and how I work with essential oils. This is a beautiful way to use essential oils. So please join me in this adventure. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. Thanks for joining me. We'll talk later.